Hello students, this is an overview of how to conduct a literature search. And granted, not even an overview, this is just an example of one way. I should say there's lots and lots of ways. I always recommend talking to a librarian if you get a chance. So I recommend you always start with lib.asu.edu so you can have access to all these articles. If you just start hunting for articles, you're gonna get charged for them because you're not logged into ASU. If you're logged into ASU, you get free access to a bunch of articles, never pay for articles. So lib.asu.edu, scroll down to view resources. So you don't want to start in the obvious place here because really you have too broad of searches, and for this course we're not using Google Scholar. So rather, you're going to scroll down to view resources and click on one of the databases that's required. So for instance, CINAHL is one. So let's start there. And they all have a lot of similarities. So once you use this in one search engine, you can apply it in other search engines a lot of times. So you'll see that I have a lot of options down here. And I honestly, if I'm picking a topic that I think is pretty restrictive, I'll kind of throw out and cast a wide net to begin with. And for the example I gave you in the Word doc that goes with this video, I picked a topic that I'm pretty sure there isn't very much research on purpose because I didn't want to pick something that some of you might pick on your own and then put you at a disadvantage, or now maybe you don't want to do that topic, or now you just got your articles looked for in a sense and your lit search is done for you. So I picked kind of an obscure topic so that hopefully there isn't too much research out there and nobody feels like their topic's being stolen. So starting with paleo diet and blood pressure. So if I start here, I'm going to start off just with paleo diet. What are all the different ways that I could describe paleo diet or what might show up in a study that's studying that? So always start off with a list, right? I come up with paleo diet. I'm like, okay, what are the many ways people could say that? Well, obviously paleo diet. Notice I'm putting that in quotes because if I don't, it'll look for anything that says paleo and anything that says diet, and you'll get a million results if you look for anything that says diet. So put it in quotes so that paleo diet itself shows up. And then I'm going to add to this, and I'm going to say, or, all caps, the next term, paleo, just plain old paleo. It doesn't have to be in quotes because it's on its own already. Or caveman diet, and that's going to be 2 words, so I need that in quotes. Or, what's my next term? Stone Age diet, again, quotes. Or Paleolithic diet. And that should be in quotes too. So these are all the different ways I can explain one element of my PICO question, right? So my PICO might be in men of Caribbean descent, how does the Paleolithic diet affect blood pressure compared to standard care? So my main elements are my population, my intervention, and my outcome. So this is my intervention. These are all the ways that I want to see if my intervention shows up. Search. So when I search this, I should get probably quite a few results of any research that has done research on the paleo diet. Now notice it says 1997 to 2019. Remember, I can only take stuff from the last 10 years. So that's probably going to restrict me even more. And then I'm going to pick my next thing that I want to show up in these articles. I don't want any research on paleo diet. I want paleo diet and if they measure the effects of blood pressure. So now I've got to brainstorm, what are all the different ways I can say blood pressure? So again, blood pressure, or systolic, or diastolic, or hypertension. I don't know if I had any other ones, or arterial blood pressure. And remember, that should be in quotes too, or I'm going to get anything that has any 3 of those words. So recognize when I say or, I'm saying any article that has any of these terms. It doesn't have to have all of them. It's just saying I'm trying to capture anything that talks about blood pressure. So again, I'm going to search. My guess is I'm going to get a whole lot more articles for this one. Yeah, just 104,000. So now I've got a record down here, S1, S2, S3, and let's see for this one, that followed my last 10 years, right? So that's 2009 to 2019. So now I want to combine these two. So I'm going to click on the things I want to combine. So I definitely wanted to say blood pressure. That's my blood pressure search. And I definitely wanted to say paleo diet or something with paleo diet. And that's my one that's restricted to 2009 to 2019. And then I'm going to click search with and, meaning I want any article that has both of these in them. So any of the blood pressure terms and any of the paleo terms. So I'm going to search with and that should really narrow down my search. So you can see I only have 7 results here. So I'm not going to scroll through in case this might be your very obscure topic, but you can see this can really help you do a broad sweep and a broad sweep and then see what they have in common. And let's say, for example, I wanted to include just Caribbean men. Then I could think of all the ways to say Caribbean and all the ways to say men, male, etc., and do search with and. So you can see how when you kind of add on each of these search terms and you connect search terms by or in one box, that can really help you narrow down your searches. So another quick thing I'm going to show you is with PubMed. So that was CINAHL. So again, I'm going to come back here, view resources, and go to PubMed. And PubMed has this pretty cool thing where it has categorized all of the articles that it uses by something called a mesh term. And a mesh term is basically saying, this study examines something about the paleo diet, and that is assigned a mesh term. Or this study examines something about blood pressure, and it's assigned that mesh term. It's like it categorizes things that way. There are not mesh terms for every single thing that exists, but there are quite a few mesh terms. So for example, for PubMed, I go to PubMed and I go down to mesh, and it looks like this. And let's say I want to just see blood pressure. I'm going to search for that. And mesh is going to show me, oh, these are all the different ways that we have different terms for blood pressure. So my interest is I want to see, does the paleo diet decrease blood pressure? So I'm going to pick blood pressure. And maybe I'm actually interested in these Caribbean men with hypertension. So I'm going to click hypertension as well. So I'm going to go over here and say add to search builder. And what it does is it basically says, okay, when I eventually search, just keep these in mind. I want to search for articles that have these. So I might even just search PubMed right away and say, what articles in the world of PubMed have been assigned this mesh term of blood pressure and hypertension? And there's a lot, as you would expect. Now let's say I'm going to be a little bit more open. I can change and or and say, okay, I want all of them, basically. So I could search that as well. It's probably going to get way bigger, right? But then let's say, okay, well, that doesn't include my paleo diet. And honestly, I haven't done this yet. So we'll see if there is even a mesh term for paleo diet. Oops, paleo. And it might include Paleolithic. Look at that, diet Paleolithic. So this is how you know that this is the only mesh term. I didn't have blood pressure, hypertension, da 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 da. It was just Paleolithic diet. So I'm going to add that to my search builder, and I'm going to search PubMed and see how many articles I get. Now, what I can do is actually go to advanced, and I can see all of the searches. This looks very similar as CINAHL, right? Because I had, in CINAHL, it was S1, S2, S3. In PubMed, it's these specific searches here. So what I can do is say, okay, I like my paleo diet mesh term, and I also like this blood pressure or hypertension. And so in a sense, I'm doing something very similar to what I did with CINAHL, except I didn't do all the different terms connected by or. I just said, I'm going to trust you, PubMed. You have labeled these articles as Paleolithic diet, and I'm just going to assume that you've captured them all, which is always a little dangerous, but it can help. And so now you can see I've got only 5 articles here. So this is for PubMed. Again, I have selected a very restrictive PICO question here. So who knows? I already see actually some potentially good studies in here, but I don't know that I would have enough for an actual assignment. So hopefully this helps you in kind of grappling with these literature searches. You really have to get creative and think of all of those potential search terms that could relate to your topic. Now, let's say that I just got 5,000 results when I did this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how can there be so much research on my topic? How am I going to sift through this? First of all, don't just pick the first one and you found your article, because that doesn't mean you found the best study. That just means you found the easiest study. And remember, number one, you're going to have to read this and critique it, and that takes time. And number two, you want to find good research, not just the first one that shows up. So if you have way, way, way too many results when you do this, which is not my problem, you can click the last 5 years. So that can be more restrictive, and you can get more recent research, which is usually building on past research, so it might be better. You can also restrict it even more and add and another term. So maybe I want to add in my population more specifically. So there are tricks for how to narrow things down more. If you did this search and you ended up with 0 results, then maybe you need to go back and maybe need to kind of break up with the paleo diet and look at the Atkins diet or the ketogenic diet, or see how can I shift my passion a little bit so that there is actual research about this topic. So anyway, I hope this helps. We always welcome your questions, and best of luck with your lit searches.